to the No BS Short-Term Rental Podcast, an unfiltered look into the global vacation and short-term rental industry.
I'm Mateo Bradford.
And I'm John Stokinger.
And this is our podcast. We bring the right people to the table at the right time, giving you an inside view and take on the short-term rental industry like no other podcast can.
Good morning, Mateo. How are you, man? Episode 14.
14. I am fantastic. Another beautiful Tuesday morning in Atlanta. Just back from St. Martin. So, I'm good. I'm peeling a little bit, but I'm good.
Well, you look relaxed. You look like there's some tension is, kind of, those that can't see there.
Yeah, no.
You look good.
Definitely, man. Everybody needs a break. So, I wish that for everyone. You too. When are you going on vacation, brother?
Next week. I put it in yesterday and I got it off. And my vacation is one night up at the lake and the rest of the week remodeling our kitchen. But at the same time, no, listen, bear with me.
Whatever works for you, dude.
It needs to be done. It's been needed. It's been put on the back burner for 3 years. And so it definitely needs to be done. And the other thing is I'm unplugging from work. The only thing that I'm doing next week is we're recording an episode of No BS on Tuesday morning to put out on Thursdays. That's it. That's my only obligation. I told my wife.
No judgment, brother. However, you just take the time.
Got to do it. Got to recharge. I had like 90 plus hours of PTO I got to use. So 40 are getting chugged off right now. Exciting episode today. I'm super stoked.
Super excited.
We have the one and only Mr. Wil Slickers joining us. How's it going, Will?
Oh, it's going great, John. Mateo, great to see you guys. It's
hey, brother, welcome.
To do one podcaster to another. I'm down to get into it with you guys. This is going to be fun.
Awesome. So my assumption is that 99.9% of the people that are listening to our podcast know who you are. But those who don't, and I'm going to just kind of go ahead and rattle off a couple of things, and let's go ahead and have Will kind of back up who he is and what he does. He is he is Slick Talk Live. He is Good Morning Hospitality. He is Recreation Rentals. He is a consultant. He in the hospitality space. And for those that don't know, he's prior military. Or are you still a reservist?
Yeah.
No, I actually got out October 24th, 2020. So
okay.
I'm done.
Thank you for your service, brother.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, both of you as well.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Will.
Yeah, it's a long story short, but I kind of accidentally got into the industry after a failed entrepreneurial journey of starting a chauffeur and party bus company in Spokane, Washington at, I think, a whopping 19 years old, right before Uber came in. And I remember picking up these guests at this 4-diamond Marriott property and was like, I'm going to work there. Never having experience. I walked in with my suit and tie, a decently put together resume that had no hotel or hospitality background on it, and got interviewed on the spot, but then actually got hired on the spot. And on my first day, I remember I just fell in love, like, with the whole experience. It was crazy, 716 rooms. So having a line of, 500 people to check in that day was a little nuts. But I think that journey gave me the greatest start I could have ever asked for. And from that point on, I've just been in love with vacation rentals and destinations, and of course podcasting, which was an accidental journey as well. But when you have a passion for something, I think it's really fun to see how people discover it, and the podcast was one way for me. So that's kind of like a little bit of a background, long story short.
That's awesome.
I think that encapsulates you, man. Like that story. So, like, don't let the smooth taste fool you, man. Will is a hustler, man. He gets it done. Look, I think I want to point out certain parts of that story, i.e. having no experience walking up. It takes guts. Like, you got to be able to walk in there and know that you can compete and know that this is something that you're in. Like that's a drive. I think a lot of people, they miss that part of the story, right? They see the end. they see, you know, the multiple podcasts, they see what you're doing, but like that story for me is reflective of who you are. Like you mix it up. You don't do things the ordinary way, but you get in there, you get it done. And it's an extremely hard, you know, amount of work that goes into that. And I don't think people see the background of that. If they really know you, then yeah, they probably get a glimpse of how hard you work. But you told me this morning, you got in the office at 5:30. How many people, you know, really get into the office at 5:30, get in there, grind and get it done? So like, salute to that, right? Salute to the hustle, salute to the hard work, and salute to, you know, still having the energy to bring new and vibrant and relevant things to the industry. Like that's what that story represents for me to you, brother. So hats off to you.
I appreciate it. I don't really share my earlier years with a lot of people, but you know, I had to start out early. I was talking to Andrew Kitchell with Wheelhouse the other day, and I was homeless at 17, so like I had to like really figure shit out like real quick. And I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on the podcast, but
it's the No Bullshit podcast. Of course.
Okay, I just want
open and candid, brother.
If you listen to last week's episode, if we were to go ahead and actually go back and count the number of fucks that were said on last week's episode,
we had Anthony on there. Shout out.
Yeah, it was a lot. You're fine.
Okay, sweet. Good to make sure. But yeah, I think that one thing, like, you know, having to learn really quick was kind of that drive for me. And so I it's kind of hard to get out of that, but in the same time, it's a good thing to have. So I appreciate those words. It really does mean a lot.
I mean, when Mateo and I, and those that listen to the podcast know our story, but you know, we met on the, you know, Mateo calls it the Kearney Circuit.
I didn't create that, by the way.
You know, we met in Gatlinburg doing, you know, it was his first show. It was my first show in this space. You know, I came from selling hardwood lumber. Previous to that, I was a heavy equipment operator. Previous to that, I was active Army, you know, so we all kind of get here our own ways. And we met, we didn't really know anybody, and we're kind of, and we just really hit it off really quick. But when we were talking about like, man, we bring this different thing to the space, truly, when I was having conversations with Mateo, I said, man, Wil's killing it. I said, he's got a cool podcast. People are listening to him. I said, I think we have a story. Like, you were part of our inspiration to know that we could be successful if we put our minds to it. And so I want you to know that, because like truly there's a handful of people where like, wow, they're successful. They're doing this, you know, Heather Bear, you know, all these people were like, man, like, wow. And we have a different story. We have a different background, you know, and so again, hats off to you. Thank you. You know, there was some inspiration and some definite encouragement, not, you know, vocalized from you, but, you know, at the same time, we felt like, hey, we got this.
Yeah, it was definitely because, you know, we were looking at, you know, we wanted it to be, and we were talking earlier, like how it came to be, like we wanted it to be like our conversations, right? So like, we called it the Kearney Circuit because we were the vendors at the conferences. But like, we would drink, we'd have relevant conversations. We'd be talking about the industry. We'd be talking about like the cultural aspects of the industry, like, and we'd be talking about things that aren't necessarily the nuts and bolts, right? That aren't necessarily, hey, this is how to better your management business, or hey, this technology is better. It was more along the lines of like, hey, this is interesting. Look at the amount of managers that are not here or are here, or, you know, hey, I mean, how many, you know, this, all of the things like that were, you know, conversations that were relevant that I think a lot of people were having, you know, but there was no real outlet for it. And so like, seeing you go off and do and bring something new and be successful to it, we really did. We were like, all right, this is worth a shot. And so it was definitely one of the catalysts, and John and I saying, fuck it, like, let's go for it, let's do it. But I mean, what do we have to lose, right? Like,
100%.
I mean,
100%.
You know, and again, how often do you get to really create something that is, authentic to what you want it to be, right? Like
100%.
we have, we're Switzerland in the space. We're not talking about people, like we're talking with people, and we want this to be the collective voice. We want people to come here and be able to have unfiltered conversations, tell their stories, because this is what makes our industry. To me, that's what hospitality is.
Hey, I have a
100%.
question, Wil. On your podcast, is there a conversation that you've wanted to have, but you felt that maybe I shouldn't have this on the podcast? Have you gone down that road yet? Have you had that conversation or that thought process?
Yeah, I think there's been a couple where like you could tell the guest was on a tipping point of a really good moment, like where they're about to open up something beautiful. Like I had a guest almost crying, telling their story, and I did get to pull a little bit more out of him, but part of me wishes I not pulled or pushed more, but kind of got into let my mind relax a little bit where I could actually be vulnerable with them in a deeper sense of this is a pure, like you can't buy this. You can't find this at the stores. You can't find this on Amazon or on Netflix. Like this is a pure, genuine human to human connection. And the fact that we're having it over Zoom, like I do think about that episode and like, damn, if I just paused for a little bit longer right there and just like allowed myself to act on that. And I've talked about this a couple times before that we are, as humans, we encounter multiple times, hundreds, if not thousands of times a day where we're able to make a decision internally that we're thinking, whether it's something with someone in front of us or just even by ourselves in a room. We have thousands of opportunities to make moments or to act on something. And it's our job as humans to be aware of that and then decide whether we're going to act or not. And that was one of those moments where I was like, damn, I've been preaching this to the choir and here I am not, like I didn't do it. So I do think about that moment quite often. For me, I think it's super cool that we have this opportunity, like to hear your guys' story on like, this is an outlet, this is our story. Like that's what it is that no vacation rental is the same. No podcast is the same, whether people try to, like, if you're a big, like NPR podcast and trying to copy another concept or do whatever, great, but they're still not the same. There's uniqueness to everything of it. And so, it's just really interesting that the segue of those stories and moments and how they happen or don't happen when you make decisions or not. And so hearing that you guys are like, one, going for it and said, fuck it. Like, I love it. I think it's great. So if that answers your question, hopefully I can cut it off there, but.
No, you're good, man. It definitely does. It was, Heather put out a great, in her recent, I think she just hit, I can't remember, like Heather Bear had some huge milestone. She's about to have 1 million downloads, which is insane. That'll happen this year. I can't even imagine. We hit 1,000.
Yeah,
we're like,
that's
holy
super
shit.
Dope. Congratulations. Yeah.
That's
that's dope. But Heather's dope. So she's done a
But
good one for sure.
She had this stat that and I read it in an article that she just put out or on a social post that those that are starting a podcast, if you can do 7, it's once you get past 7, it's going. It's in a consecutive, whether it be every week, every other week or whatnot. Once you hit that 7th podcast, that 7th episode, whatever format you're doing, there's I think there was like a 95% chance of it continuing to be a success. It's those ones that do one episode here, they wait a month, they do another episode. And so it's just interesting. I love seeing these different stories. I love. You want
to hear another stat?
Yeah, I do.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so 26% of Apple podcasts on Apple Podcasts only have 1 episode.
26%.
26%. Yeah, of podcasts on Apple Podcasts only have 1 episode. They never made it past that.
Crazy. Crazy.
My hardest thing I'm trying to figure out is like, I'm trying to get, and maybe I'll talk to you offline here because this isn't necessarily a great podcast conversation, but I'm trying to get in the right tier, in the right like column for searching. I'm thinking we're on like news and commentary, but there's like no real great, at least not that I've seen, travel, short-term rental focused, like checkbox. And maybe we could talk offline. Because I'm like, and like we show up great in the short-term rental space because it's in our title. But if I search vacation rental, way down the line, and because it's not on our title. So I don't know. We'll talk offline, but that's a different.
Yeah, definitely. No, the category on podcasts is definitely it's, I don't know who you guys host through, but it was hard even for me in the beginning creating a hospitality podcast focus, whether it's hotels, restaurants. Like, I'm not food and beverage, I'm not just lodging, I'm not just this. So it's like, where do you land? And for us, we just decided that business was kind of like a good category to start. And it's a very competitive category because you got Gary Vee, you got Tony Robbins, you got all these big players in that side. But that's the cool part about our industry is that, as a vertical of hospitality, short-term rentals, vacation rentals, whatever, it's still not mainstream. And until
we're news and commentary,
they got
it's we're Buzzsprout, by the way. That's how it's done.
Okay. That's cool.
So, Will, again, so I think it's a good actual segue into something else I was excited to talk about today. The podcast is just one side of what you do, and again, you mentioned it earlier, man. Look, theory versus application, right? Management, right? Look, you like me. Look, I this hotel behind me, man, 18 rooms, crazy. Like, theory versus application is 100%. Insane, right? Like, it is a different world. And I think, I got a long theory on how the industry could, if it had more of a hands-on approach, would be able to serve itself better. I'll put it like that. 100%. Because it's one thing to be, coming from the vendor side, thinking and talking to managers and getting it from one perspective. And then the other, it's very different when you're up to your neck in it and it's real, right? And then you get a different perspective. So, big news, of course, the elephant in the room is Vacasa, $4.5 billion SPAC valuation, IPO.
A lot of money.
Talking about it for a while.
Wow.
And look, shout out to, the founders, Cliff, Eric, those guys, the ones who really built, Vacasa, like that built it out of the mud. People forget, like, of course I'm from Portland, so I'm going to put it out there. Portland pushed company, but like they really built it out the mud, as they say, right? Like, and to see where it is today is impressive. So regardless of what people think or whatever, shout out to all of those and the community. Vacasa was a people company and had a lot of amazing people that really built that company. So shout out to all of those who had a hand in that. It's a huge accomplishment, regardless of what people think about it. But as a manager, what are your thoughts about, let's talk about, what does this mean for us? What does this mean for the industry? Is this just another horse race now? Like,
well, because I've had the pleasure to meet Cliff. So Cliff Johnson, again, one of the founders of Vacasa, super inspirational guy. Like, I've looked up to him since I've gotten to like meet him via LinkedIn and all this other stuff. But, it's crazy because we all kind of predicted this, that Airbnb kind of started this whole trend of trying to go public, right? It was the first platform or the first kind of brand mainstream name to really get known and shown out to the world that vacation rentals, like Verbo, it's been around way before Airbnb, but Airbnb really, I don't know how, they just knew how to build a really good brand that everybody, their mom, their grandma, your niece and nephew, everyone can use and get on and book. So they started this kind of trend of going public. And reading Cliff's post about, even though I've been removed from Vacasa for about 3 years and 5 months or whatever the date was, saying that we started out in our kitchen, in Eric's kitchen. We were we were cold calling owners. We were doing the hustle. That shows me that, it's kind of like one of those stories of Vacasa wasn't Vacasa overnight, right? It took blood, sweat, tears, and the people thing that you're talking about. Like, it took a team. It wasn't just one person leading a charge. It was a team of people on a dedicated mission.
Cliff tagged like 100 people, or at the limit.
And it could have been more, more, right?
Yeah.
And let's be very clear. And that's what I want. That's what I think is important around all this. Is like
100%.
That's what built Vacasa. they did it differently, you know, and again, what it's, you know, going to be. I mean, that's a huge conversation to have. Like when companies go public and become these corporate entities, they're not, it's changes, you know, the
Everything.
organization. And you can talk to anyone that's been at Vacasa at any of their different periods in time, you know, the culture changed as it does with scale, right? Like, and so
we're going through it
again,
like now at TravelNet. You know, we're scaling and the culture's changing. Not a negative thing, not necessarily always a positive thing either. It's a thing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a ever progressing like learning cycle too, right? Like how to do it effectively is, you know, something that there's no kind of cookie cutter way to do it, right? Like you have to be able to really, you know, gauge what you're dealing with and figure out almost like a instant solution or a you know, a multi-tiered solution. Because again, especially for companies like Vacasa that acquire through acquisition, look at all the companies that do that. That is not easy. Ask Milo, is that easy to do? And he'll tell you no, but you're able to find a way to do it, you know, from a business perspective. And then, I mean, but then you have to fix the cultural aspect of it, because again, you need people to work. Like people are going to need to want to be a part of your organization. So there has to be value in that. So I think you are going to see more changes around the cultural aspect of, you know, what these scaling, what this looks like, because, you know, when those things happen, what happens? The hotlines start going up. Well, they're going more corporate. People get on the phone, they start calling managers. I bet you've got a bunch of calls, right? Like, hey, I don't know what's going on here. Like it sends those kind of ripples and shockwaves through the industry. So like, as a company, you have to be able to quell that and be like, hey, look, you know, it's going to be not just as good as before, but better. And this is how we're going to take care of you. And unfortunately, that's where it falls off, right? Because, and I get it, because you're onboarding, you're dealing with personnel, you got all these other things, but they're going to learn. You're going to have someone there to shape and drive the culture, because it's the only way to win and be successful.
100%. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. And you know, to your point that managers, you know, we've gotten quite a few calls. We haven't signed any previous Vacasa owners, but we've gotten quite a few because, you know, when, like you said, when the ripple effect does happen, it shifts the water in the sense of, you know, direction of where the fish are going to go. And sometimes those fish get scared and they go off path. And, you know, I think it's also kind of interesting to see, you know, maybe, you know, it's really the reason why I really like Cliff's story is because he's transparent about how they started and how they're ending, in the sense of ending as going public. Like, I don't know really else what the next tier is other than going public. But that this is a really good example for managers like myself, for managers that are coming in, managers that already have a really good, strong portfolio, whatever that may be. This is a really good example of that. This does happen. Like, this is an example. And kind of like how you guys were talking about the podcast, like, all right, we see all these other podcasters, like they're doing it, we can too. And so I think that's where our industry becomes really unique, is an encouraging space for people to say, fuck it. Like, I don't care that there's risk. I don't care that it's going to take me 80, 90, 100 hours to build this. I'm going to build it, because when you really do love something that much, where you're cold calling owners at your kitchen table with all these handwritten letters and sending them out and doing this and doing that, there's a lot of moving pieces. But then you get to that scale, there's a lot more moving pieces, and it kind of gets easier, but it gets harder. And then, you know, at the end of the day, you're able to sit down with a microphone in front of you asking, how did you do it? So that's where it's really, really cool.
I couldn't agree more. And the interesting thing too about Vacasa is, and any company, they started out just like anybody else. And exactly, you said, there's no difference. There's nothing, there's special things about Vacasa because there's that synergy and there's that, but I can name 100 different companies that started off on a dining room table, cold calling and doing different things. That's how, you know, TravelNet started. That's how, you know, all these companies started off that way. It's that dynamic and where you take it from there. And it should be, it should just ooze optimism to anyone out there that's like, hey, I can do this. We could do this. Hey, we got right now, what do we got? You know, we got 60 units. We're in this market. We're growing to this market. We have 10 units. You know, we want to expand in this neighborhood here. We really want to go ahead and let's invest in this development. There's so much opportunity. and they're really no different than Vacasa
100%.
10 years ago, 15 years ago, whenever. Like this, it's just the vision. It's leadership. I mean, there is a ton of differences, but they start the same way.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think
100%.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think I agree with that. But then, you know, there's always a pivot point, because look, I mean, you look at the people who, you know, what do you want to be, right? Also, like, you have to think of, there are managers that are okay being medium to small size managers. Mm-hmm. Like it works for them, right? Like, they're not trying to be Vacasa. They're not trying to be, you know, V-Trips. They're not trying to be the big boys in the game that are actively acquiring, and they're happy with their businesses. You know, they're good with the attrition. Again, they can fire owners that they don't want, you know, and then they market and scale as they want to. And I think that's an overlooked dynamic too. Like let's have a conversation 100%. Of what is the business. Like, not everybody's trying to build up a company to go public and IPO. Yeah. What about building just a sustainable, profitable management company? You know, that it's a legacy family business. Like, you know,
absolutely.
Joe Williams and Jonathan Williams and Carol and them. Like, you look at companies like that you know, that I think that's a missing part of the conversation. Like, these businesses are not any less valuable because they're not trying to go public. Like, they are
100%. 100%. Well, I was just having this conversation with Matt from Explory, was saying, like, you know, we're talking about what is scale, right? Like, how do you know if this is scalable, right? And it's like, well, I compared it to like multifamily and single family, and then Brian, his other co-host for their podcast, for the Guest X, was like, well, I know a manager that only keeps 100 properties, but he's circling out quality. So his lowest quality property, he cuts them if, you know, he has the opportunity to get another property as that new quality property. And he's just keeping a cycle of 100 quality top tier properties and repeating that process. And I think self-awareness in this whole thing, for you guys doing a podcast, for anyone starting a management company, for anyone starting to develop a tech software or ITO device or whatever it may be, like, it takes self-awareness. Like, how do you want this to be? Do you want to be a billionaire, you know, publicly traded company? Do you want to be, you know, creating a great 6-7 figure business that's cash flows, that lets you go on vacation with your family any time of the year, no matter what? You could literally, at the drop of a dime, leave. Or do you want to, like, for me, like, can you be a single 26-year-old who has no dating life, no social life, and just put your head down and just go? Like, you know, that's what do you want to build? And I think that self-awareness aspect, like you're talking about, Mateo, is just super important, because we see so many people saying, well, like, and I'll be guilty of this, and this is like a full 100% transparency. Like, in the beginning, when I first started the podcast, before I even quit my day job as a hotel GM, was, well, Matt Landau's doing this as a podcaster. Like, how do I become Matt Landau? And then after, you know, doing this full time, I was like, I don't need to be Matt. I love Matt. I love him as a human. I love him as a podcaster. But then I like had this moment in 2020. It's like, I don't need to be Matt Landau. Like, I can look up to him and learn from him and, like, you know, be, you know, a comrade with him, but I don't need to be him. Like, I need to be okay with what I'm building for my own personal journey. So having that opportunity to, like, be fully self-aware of what we're doing, whether it's anything, and I don't care what sector of hospitality or the business, it's really key. Like, I get fired up over that stuff. It's really good.
Yeah. No, I get definitely shout out to Matt. Now, he was definitely a pioneer, and is 100%. Another super creative, right? Like, Matt is innovative and creative, and, you know, brings fresh new perspective that's really valuable.
Great storyteller.
To property
great
managers.
storyteller.
Great storyteller for sure.
Yeah.
And he's always got a camera crew. He's always got a crew. Whenever, you know, that's what I love about Matt. Like, he's rolling with a production crew. Like, he's on production, like, on the spot. So
I love
it. Good stuff.
So good.
Yeah.
Him and Milo, like,
oh,
Milo can't not have a camera following.
Hey, man, look, I met you. I met. That's a funny story. I met you and Milo the same weekend. I just started at Rented. It was trying to talk to everyone I could. Steve was definitely somebody I wanted to talk to, and it was. You remember he was rocking around with the shirt with the Grim Reaper that had the sickle and had the TripAdvisor head in his hand under a suit jacket. I was like,
Gives no fucks.
Steve, I was like, this is gonna be my guy. He and I are gonna get along just fine. And I've been bothering Steve ever since. But no, shout out to Steve. He's great, man. We love Steve. So, but
talk to us, Will, about the Destinator Awards. This is right up, like this meets with, I know it's more global hospitality, not necessarily. So I have two questions for you. I want to hear about the Destinator Awards, but I also want to hear your story of when you made the transition from straight, hotel hospitality and into, and you're still, that's a huge focus of yours, but I want to kind of talk about what made you kind of verge into the short-term rental space as well. But let's hear about the Destinator Awards and what they are exactly and how they kind of, it's culture. It's everything that this podcast is about.
100%. Well, for the Destinator Awards were early 2020 during the middle of the pandemic, where I was on COVID testing sites for the National Guard. I was in my hotel room. I hadn't published an episode in a little over a month. Like all of April, I didn't pub nothing. I didn't know anything about COVID, so I felt like I had no value to bring to the industry for this whole craziness we were all going through. I had no idea how to communicate that. But after having a couple inquiries come back and people started to be like, all right, we're kind of getting traction. Like we're not done yet. Like we're still here. I was talking actually with David Jacoby and was just going like, I was telling him, I was like, I am seeing the same companies in the spotlight over and over and over. And not that it's bad, but I was just like, what about the people that put their face down and are eating shit right now as they're going through and continuing not only to figure out how to maneuver around COVID and all these restrictions and, the uncertainty of, do we wear a mask? Do we stay 6? Like, what is this? What's really happening? But they're still delivering the best hospitality experiences that there are to their guests, no matter what. Like they're still making people feel welcomed and loved and cared for and like intentional. And I was talking to another mentor of mine who I had the pleasure to work for out in Cannon Beach, Oregon. And I was like, how do I describe it? I had this like really, like I was almost in tears. I was like, how do I describe this feeling like of just like wanting to, I don't even know how to word it, but he was just like, you and I are wired to create remarkable experiences that are anticipated and shared. Mm-hmm. And that hit me because I was like, everyone else that's out there serving right now, their guests, their team, their owners, whoever, like they're the wired to create. Like they're the ones that haven't given up. They're the ones that really want to like make this work, whether it's the end of the world or not. And so coming up with the concept, I was sitting down in my hotel room after that conversation with David Jacoby and my mentor, and was just like writing down pen and paper. And I saw something about like millionaire something on the news, and I was like, destined, and kind of playing with the word, create a destination there with the concept of that to be a destination there, you're wired to create remarkable experiences that are anticipated and shared. And so got everyone I knew together. It's like, hey, this is a free thing. If you can donate stuff, like whether it was guidebooks or consulting or, whatever, I don't care. We would love to have you be a part of this and nominate your clients, your people that use your noise aware devices or your Breezeway software backend, whatever it may be. Like, come together and let's do it. And so we did, and we had over 60 nominations around the world, from like South Africa to Italy to Spain and France and all over the US. And just seeing people nominate their coworkers or colleagues that they aren't able to see in person. They're all like hundreds, if not thousands of miles away. Like, it's crazy to see the community come together. And so the Destination Awards are that. And this year we're doing quarterly nominations on the website just to keep it going. Because in 2022, we're actually going to be September this year, we're going to be announcing the in-person event happening in 2022 in collaboration with another event that's actually coming to the US. So I'm really excited.
Just let the cat out the bag a little bit, by the way.
A little bit, but not yet. We'll save the.
we're happy to help build that anticipation, brother.
Hey, you heard it here first.
Right, man.
Yep.
Thank you for
seriously.
that.
I just want to give you guys a golden nugget.
Hey, man, thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah. So that's the Destination Air Awards in a nutshell. But to kind of answer your second question, John, and I don't want to take up too much of the conversation, but, I started off in hotels, but my parents had a 2-bedroom apartment that they were renting out long-term, and we're just having a really bad time with tenants. Like, dogs would chew up the floors and scratch up stuff, and just like they had and people not paying rent. And yeah, not like, but like the dogs are great, but like if you have bad owner, you're gonna have bad behavior, right? So I
just had to up my pet fee on the hotel. We are pet dog friendly, but people don't understand. Like it's very bad, and then it affects your ability to clean and affects and it goes on downhill. People don't understand. Like it's not as easy as just saying, "Oh, we accept dogs."
Well, and the first impression when a guest walks in and sees scratched up, what do you call it? Floorboards, I'm looking at it right now. They have floorboards and all the other stuff. Like it just isn't a good look. But anyway, so they were going through bad like renters, and this was like when Airbnb was still kind of like just kind of happening, where people were doing like the spare bedroom type listings and stuff. And they're like, "Hey, can you help us set up an Airbnb?" And I was like, as a hotel guy, I was like, hell yeah, this is like a 1-room hotel. This is super easy. I can come up with all the great policies and processes for you. And it was a kind of fun little outlet. And as time went on, I became a hotel manager out on the Oregon coast, and we were killing our numbers. We were getting like the greatest team ever. Started becoming the #1 property in our destination, and it was just really cool. But on the back end, I had my parents' vacation rental that I was helping them with. Then I had met an amazing guest who was actually a local vacation rental operator in my hometown, who I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I have to interview you. And after a while, we collaborated, and we're like, hey, let's start a management company. Let's get luxury properties like castles and mansions and all that stuff. So we did. And then I grew the podcast to a point where I was outweighing my salary at the hotel, and I was like, you know what, this is it. So I gave them a month's notice. December 27th, 2019 was my last day. December 28th, 2019, I had no idea what to do with myself, because I was like, how do you do this full time? How do you fill out the hours?
You gotta get it done.
And
but that's a milestone. Like, look,
huge milestone.
I think you can't underscore that enough, right? Like, any entrepreneur, founder, anyone out there that's listening knows the importance of that moment, right? Like, of being able, because that, again, theory versus application, that is the moment when you 100% are betting on yourself.
100%.
Period.
And I remember waking up and just telling myself, sink or swim, sink or swim, sink or swim, sink or swim. Little did I know this whole thing called COVID-19 would happen like 3 months later. But at the end of the day, it was a true testament to that sink or swim motto. It's like, okay, how the hell am I going to handle this? Saved up I told this a few times, but I turned down, if I stayed until January 2nd, 4 or 5 days later from my actual date, I would have received a $10,000 bonus from my year previous at the hotel. And my boss was like, when I gave my notice, she goes, don't you want to stay to get your bonus? And she was like, just stay till the end of January, so make sure you get that. And I was like, if I stay one more day after the 27th, I will end up probably jumping off a bridge. Like, I need to get out. I need to go. This is it. And I walked away from 10 grand that I could have definitely used in the beginning, but it was a true thing of like, when it's really inside of you, like when you're really hungry, you have to be that person that is the hungriest person in the room, and you don't care. Nothing's going to get in your way. And that was kind of like that moment for me. But yeah, crazy.
And that's it. And those who have been there will completely understand, right? Like, let's be very clear. 10 grand is a lot of money, at least to me. I don't know where y'all's wallets are, what y'all are doing, but like 10, I know y'all might be, in a different tax bracket than me, but
come on, you got a hotel. You got. I see the hotel.
But look, that's reality. When there's not enough money in the world that's going to change that scenario, that's that moment, and that's when you 100% sell out and are betting on yourself. That's congratulations, salute to that.
Thank you.
Because that's where a lot of people. That's a threshold a lot of people don't pass. It's it's definitely a milestone, brother.
Thank you. Yeah. Getting started is the hardest part, but then I think a lot of people don't realize, like, when you get started as a side hustle, then you have to quit that's the second hardest part. That's the other half of the story where you're like, you can all that thought of like, I can always get another job, or like I did have like a little bit of savings because I was like being real frugal when I decided I was going to quit. I remember because I like quit smoking, I quit drinking, I quit doing all this other stuff that like from the military I picked up, and I was like, all right, I'm quitting all these bad habits. And that was in September. And then in December, I made that decision. But, you know, I definitely think like at that time, like $10,000 was a lot for me to walk away from, and then, to do. So yeah, it's interesting to see where it's at now, but yeah, it's fun stuff.
Only 4 days, man.
It's only 4 days.
Look, and hats off, because like, people, the only thing that I can compare that to is like actors, right? Like that get paid from like job to job, right? Like my boys who are actors, they have to more frequently than other people, because every time they're unemployed after every job, right? Like it's a true entrepreneurial, lifestyle where it's 100% on you. And it's why it's not easy. It's why everyone can't do it and doesn't want to do it. So exactly.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I don't know if you guys have another question or anything, but I ended up actually going through COVID with that company. I actually got out in November of 2020 due to just the way things were. The partnerships were changing. And was like, I'm going to focus on the podcast full time, even though I was already doing that, but like, I'm going to really focus, like not having a paycheck and not having any income come in for 8 months. I was like, you know what, like, why not? Like I've already made it 8 months with no money. So let's just go. And we did that. And then the kind of that theory and application thing that you've been talking about, Mateo, was like, I was tired of saying, we used to do this, we used to do that. As a hotel manager, I used to do this. And it's like, no, I'm still like, at the time, it's like, I'm 25. Like I need to get back in. And we started a new one, which is recreation rentals. And now we're scaling that and just taking everything that we're applying from the podcast through previous lessons and through what we're seeing with the industry. Just like, how can we make this super unique and cool? So that's kind of the full circle for you.
So the recreational rentals, is that what your road trip that you took, where you were all over? Wasn't necessarily a road trip, it was plane to plane that you went to, but was that for recreational rentals?
No, actually it wasn't. So
that was your consultant hat.
Yeah, that was my consulting mode, I guess you could say. Recreation rentals, so we're kind of focusing on the PNW area, so really the outdoor type of, like, we just signed a 2-bedroom 2-bath cabin near the pass, like right outside the ski slope. So like we're really focusing on that, like that kind of like keeping that recreation brand, but also experiential hospitality. We want to see how can we automate a lot of the processes and steps, but really let that automation let us focus on that human to human connection with our guests. Like whether they want to talk to us or not, we let them decide and we make that experience based off of that. So but for my it was 7,470 miles of air travel. That was a consulting gig for a multifamily project that just recently was announced on Skift and everything, for this residential company to come into these distressed, or not even distressed, but these hotels and turn half hotel, half residential, and create a home share program for them. So 1,588 units coming online this year.
Nice. That's dope. I love that concept.
And what was your biggest takeaway from going to these different, it's at this time, travel in, I probably in 80% of where you went was relatively fully open. Now with Delta variants, everything's changing again. We're going to see some change again. But at that time, which was just like a month and a half ago, right? It wasn't that long ago. What did what was your biggest takeaways from meeting in these, from state to state to different locations? Because it was a full US tour. I mean, it wasn't like a regional part of the, what did you pull out of that?
Well, It was interesting because it was really exciting. Like I was like, hell yeah, I'm getting out of the PNW for the first time in a while. Like this is gonna be great. I'm going to destinations I haven't seen and I've never been to or I haven't seen in a while. Um, we did stay at hotels for the most part because like it was such a quick, like we were in one city one day and then we were out the next. Like there was even one day where we landed at like 3. We got to the hotel to do our property tour and then we were out that night. Like it was crazy. um, but for me, when we stayed at some of these properties, like it was sad in the sense of staff is short, the property is losing its quality in the sense of upkeep. But then like you could tell, like, man, these people, whether they're housekeepers or maintenance or front desk, like I didn't feel that hospitality spirit. Whether I was with the Marriott and I'm a loyal member, platinum elite or whatever, and just getting that welcome of, hey, Mr. Slickers, like we got you up to your, it wasn't there. Like that life, not that I expect every time, but as a hospitality person, like we know,
we expect different.
We expect different, and part of me like just wants to. I wanted to jump behind the front desk with them and be like, all right, let's figure this out. How can we bring some life back here? But, I think it's going to be an interesting time. Rates, like they weren't cheap. So like, even though we're understaffed, you could tell that hotels are at least making revenue. The industry's getting back. But I think people are ready for some change. Like, I think, the way that, we talked about multiple times already, culture, like how the hell do we have a staffing shortage when hotels are getting 300-400 plus a night for not even a good quality brand? And the reason why we have a staffing shortage is because we're not paying people enough. We're not paying people.
Right.
Yeah, like those front desk agents that don't have that happy smile for a platinum member. The reason why they're not happy is because they're making $14 and they've been there for 12 hours. I would hate to be back in that position.
And look at it this way, Will, too. Like the big, that's just their day job or their night job. That's just their shift. That's how they put money, that's how they put food on the table. But you don't know their backstory. Everybody this past year and a half, 2 years has taken the wind out of everyone's sails. Like the intestinal fortitude that it needs that it takes to put yourself out there and put that face on and to go and chug and do what you need to do is absolutely insane. And people are tired.
Yeah.
Well, and this is the other part about it. You have to think about it. Will's absolutely right. We underpaid at the hotel. I'm overpaying right now because I have a great person like that absolutely makes my life easier in that space. And I'd much rather overpay them and keep them. Number one, because they're awesome. Number two, because look, the industry, like people have a choice. They're going other places. They're switching industries. You have to think about what this says about how much we were paying people. If the amount the government was giving them to stay home, and it was not a lot, is suffice it for them to be able to stay where they are, and maybe they weren't paying rent. I don't know. Whatever people's situations are, but we are not seeing, we're seeing people either go to different industries and other places or stay home. And so I still think that is definitely saying something in this space about how we treat the people that are the most important to our operation and to our success in the industry. Like, look, and again, that's in the theory and the application part about it. Like, it's hard. It's very hard. Even when you have the best, it's hard to do this. And so we got to have a conversation around, like, are we doing the right things? Like, why are these things happening? Hotels, you're absolutely right. I think they got a different issue. They got a different problem. I think we're over hoteled. And now, like, there's, that skill set can be used in other operations and other places. So I get why there's a talent gap there. But it's still far and few between, man. Like,
we're seeing a lot of. Oh, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're done.
We're seeing a lot of hotel workers, front desk, VP of sales, whatever, get into vacation rentals because they have a new opportunity to really create the destination and the experience that they couldn't create at a hotel because of limited access to resources, to a team, or to even a limited access of creativity from anybody else, because I'll be the first one to say it, that most like general hotel owners will be like, well, this is how it's been the last 20 years. Why would I change?
Right.
Why would I try to increase my book direct traffic rather than rely on booking.com or anybody else? Why would I? It's been like this forever. I'm used to paying this amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars in commission anyways. Yeah. Why waste the energy? Well, it's like, I'll tell you why, because you're not going to be here in 5 years. Yep. You're going to be outpaced. You're going to be outperformed. You're going to be out everything. You're going to be outstaffed. You're going to be out, whatever. And it's that mindset. And that's why I'm like hearing that you're overpaying for someone, Mateo, is like, yes, because that challenges that whole concept of, well, we've been doing it this way. Why would we pay people more when this is really all the job entails? That's not all the job entails. The job entails a lot more if you're actually on the ground doing it. So
yeah, and how much do you want that person invested in part of your culture? I mean, you're building a culture in your brand, and if you're willing to overpay for the right person, it makes sense. You know that they're going to bend over backwards for you. You know they're going to go ahead and stay that extra hour if necessary. You know they're going to come in at 5:30 in the morning and do what they need to do to make sure that it's done. And especially like in today's day and age, like Mateo's is running this from Atlanta, and the property is in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, and that could be done today with the right people and the right team put in place. And that's why it's so important. And that's why I applaud Mateo as well for what they're doing. And I think more hospitality management teams need to take notice of this, of hey, these are your people, especially cleaning staffs. Like I have a good friend of mine. He has a small luxury focused short-term rental business in Panama City Beach area. And he pays $200 to $300 more a clean for this a team. It's a family of cleaners that works with them, and he treats them like family. He goes to their birthday parties. He goes to they're part of his family, but he knows they're going to take care of him, and he knows the level of service. He knows that clean level in these luxury that you're not going to. He can come out with a white glove and check these luxury listings, and he knows it's going to be exactly the way he wants it every time. And if you were to pay him what everyone else is paying, they just jump ship. Yeah, because they're taking care of their families. Man, it's been a great show. I'm so glad you joined us. I could talk for 2 hours with you, 3 or 4 hours. I love that you joined us today in the No Bullshit Short-Term Rental Podcast, episode 14.
We'll definitely have you back, brother. This is fun. So we're talking to you, man.
Where are you gonna? Are you going to any? Speaking of Kearney, back to the Kearney Circuit, are you going to be at any of the national shows this year at all? Are you going to Durham in a couple of weeks? Are you going to be at Verma?
Yeah, I'll be at Verma in October, so I'll be there. That's the only one I plan on doing for now. There's another show in Seaside, Oregon, that I might go to, but right now with the
Northwest VRP
mode that we're in, I think I might be a little occupied. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, awesome having you on. Thank you so much, Will. Brother. Appreciate you. Looking forward to the reciprocating on yours. We're excited to join you soon.
Yes.
And man, great episode. Thank you so much.
Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Hey, man. Always.
Yes. See you soon.